Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session today. A very special event that we are holding, as we round off the end of LGBT History Month. So today I'm thrilled to be joined by a panel consisting of some of our own Pride Network and exciting external guests from Charlton Invicta. If we can go to the next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. So before we kick off, some housekeeping. This platform, as you've probably noticed, doesn't allow you to, the audience to turn on your mics, so don't worry about any background noise on your side. We'll be sending out a feedback form following this event, and we really would love to hear your thoughts on how we can improve how we deliver these kind of events in the future. And finally, with regards to housekeeping, we will have time for Q&A towards the end of today's session. So you have the ability to submit questions to the panel, and we'll endeavour to answer all of them. But for those questions that we're either unable to answer because it requires more information or digging, or if we've run out of time, then we will send out our responses in the email that has the feedback form. Next slide, please. So, housekeeping aside, I'd like to quickly introduce you to today's panelists, who will more thoroughly, in a moment or two, introduce themselves. But for now, Bradley Falkus, could say hello for us.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Michael, for having us on. So I am Bradley Falkus. I go by he, him pronouns. I am a Geoenvironmental Administrator at Central Alliance, part of Technical Services in RSK, and I am the co-chair of RSK's Pride Network.
Thank you, Brad. And Rob?
Good afternoon, everyone, fellow panelists and those that have tuned in today. My name is Rob Knight. I'm an asset management consultant at Binnies, which is part of the RSK group. Super excited to be here today for this event, and I use the pronouns he, him.
Thank you, Rob. And Gary Ginor.
Yeah, hi, thanks everyone for joining. My name is Gary Ginor, pronouns he, him. I'm the current chair and co-founder of Charlton Invicta, an LGBT inclusive football team affiliated to Charlton Athletic Football Club.
Thank you, Gary. And Daniel?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Daniel. I run the social media page for Charlton Invicta. I go by the pronouns of he and him.
Lovely. Last but not least, Courtney.
Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. My name is Courtney Cole, and I'm go by the pronouns of she, her, and I play for Charlton Invicta.
Marvellous, thank you very much. And I am Michael Valentine. I'm the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Manager for RSK Group, and I go by the pronouns he, him. Thank you very much, everyone. If we can go to the next slide. So why are we here today? That's quite a wide existential question, but to avoid spiraling, let's focus on why we're here for Football Against Homophobia. So Football Against Homophobia, Football v Homophobia, however you want to say that, originated from the inception and launch by the Justin campaign in 2010. The Justin campaign, which is a grassroots football campaign group operating on a voluntary basis, was established in 2008 with the aim of showcasing the persisting prevalence of homophobia in football. The campaign was launched following a decade after the tragic events of Justin Fashanu, who took his own life in 1998. In addition to raising awareness, the campaign placed significant emphasis on the arts, on events, education, and of course football. Pride Sports joined the campaign in 2012, and in 2014 the organisation took over the delivery of the campaign altogether. So essentially, Football Against Homophobia exists to challenge discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity and gender expression at all levels in football. As an international initiative, Football Against Homophobia engages in campaigning, education, providing advice, guidance, the submission of research and policy consultation. At its high level, the objectives for Football Against Homophobia are around making existing football structures safe, welcoming and inclusive for LGBTQI+ people, It's also focused on creating opportunities and promoting engagement of LGBTQIA people in football at all levels and in all forms. It works to improve the representation and visibility of LGBTQIA plus people throughout football, and to realise the potential of football in society as a tool to create positive change. So that's the end of our slideshow and our introduction to Football Against Homophobia. I promised a little bit more of an introduction to the panelists, so if I can go back to Brad. Brad, if you could just give us a bit of a summary of the Pride Network, its roles and achievements over the last couple of years.
Yeah, of course I can. It'd be my pleasure to tell people about how much we've managed in the past couple of years. So the Pride Network's been around for just over 2 years now, along with our other employee networks here at RSK Group. I am current co-chair of the Pride Network, and I've seen it for the past year and a half, 2 years of that also. What we aim to do is provide peer support for our colleagues. We understand that sometimes the world can be quite difficult for us LGBTQIA people. So we understand that the workplace, somewhere that we spend most of our lives, our adult lives, needs to be somewhere that fosters inclusivity, equality and diversity. We aim to raise awareness in many different aspects, and we have done so by attending in-person events like Bristol Pride last year, where over 45 people joined from 16 different companies across the UK to march with us in the name of LGBT rights. What we managed to do is things like this, which is outreaching to other LGBT organisations to really give people an understanding that they are included in and outside of work.
Brilliant. You mentioned obviously Bristol Pride last year. That was our first, as an organisation, as a group, our first steps into getting involved with Pride events, and I'm sure more exciting news will be coming available for 2024 soon. Thank you, Brad. Rob, could I go to you just for a super quick overview of your involvement with the network, why you got involved in the setup?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I've been an active member of the RSK Pride Network Committee for a couple of years. I apologies that I have a cold, for those of you that I hope you can understand me. I look after the membership administration, and also try to support the various campaigns and events, which Brad's already started to allude to, that the network is running throughout the year. So some great stuff going on. And obviously it's really important about spreading the word, carrying the flag with regards to the great work that we do to promote diversity and inclusion within the group. And this is about supporting and representing those who already work here, as well as encouraging really great people to come and work with us as well. On a personal level, I've had a rather long and troubled journey with my own sexuality, and sadly I hid this for most of my life. I am, however, delighted to say that at the tender age of 43, I did come out, never looked back, never been happier. So for me, it's really, really important that I support others who might be on this journey, might be unlucky enough to have been brought in the world at sort of the same time that I was, when things weren't as, I'm not going to say they're really simple, but less simple than they are now. And what sticks in my mind is if I can help just one person to ease their worries, who might be having the same experience that I've had, then I'm a happy man.
Thank you for that, Rob. That was really insightful. I can go over to Gary. Could you give us a quick summary of Invicta in relation to Charlton Athletic? Obviously, as well, others may not know, but you were part of the founding of Charlton Invicta. Sorry. Yeah, have you got any insight there?
Yeah, no, thanks for having us on. So yeah, obviously, as I mentioned, my name's Gary Ginnor, a gay man from South East London, massive Charlton fan. Hadn't played football for 12 years before I got back into the game due to fears of not being able to be accepted, you know, as my authentic self, and the stigma that comes around being part of the community and being active in sport and in football. So I joined Invicta in 2014. At the time, the club was going under the name of Bexley Invicta, so an LGBTQ+ football team, providing opportunities for members of the community to play in a safe space in South East London and Kent. Fast forward a couple of years, and we started talking to Charlton Athletic Community Trust and working with them sort of on an informal basis. And then in August 2017, me and my partner Sam were instrumental in getting Invicta formally affiliated to Charlton Athletic Community Trust. And at the time, it was the first team in Europe that had become formally affiliated, playing our home games and training at the Charlton Athletic Training Ground, wearing the kits, obviously changing the name, all those sort of things, and sort of rebranding the club and, to sort of align with all of the Charlton Athletic Community Trust, community teams. In terms of Invicta itself, we exist to provide those structured playing opportunities to members of the LGBTQ+ community, where people can come along and be themselves and feel comfortable in a safe and friendly and welcoming, inclusive environment, to feel acceptance. I think that's the key word. Everyone wants to be accepted and as their authentic self. And, we provide that. We provide that safe space, especially at the Charlton Training Ground, where people can just come along in a private venue and take part and play football and make friends, without any fear of any sort of prejudice. And we pride ourselves on being everyone inclusive, and that is really important to us. That's everyone, the LGBTQ+ community, but as well as people that are not from the community that still may struggle to feel acceptance, to find acceptance as their authentic self. So that's really important to us. So we have, 50% of the members, are made up of allies of the community, and that's really, really powerful for us. We're a key part of the Charlton Athletic Community Trust and Charlton Athletics EDI strategy. We work closely with the club, not just on, football events, but also on the campaigning side. Football versus homophobia, obviously the main reason that we're here today. LGBT History Month, Rainbow Laces, London Pride, there's so much that we work with. We're also involved in webinars and educational pieces, obviously similar to today. I think the thing that sort of sums up our members is, and as a club, we are activists on and off the pitch, and I think that's really important that, the platform that affiliating to Charlton Athletic has given us is that it's allowed our members to become role models for the LGBTQ+ community. Then, people talk about there being no openly gay footballer in the professional league in England, but there are so many at grassroots level, and they're the ones living the journey and telling the stories, and hopefully becoming role models for the next generation. So Charlton Athletic have given us that platform to increase visibility and representation, both at grassroots level, but also in the professional game. There's so many clubs talking about campaigns and getting active with the community now. So the club has grown on and off the pitch. And I think when you talk about sort of key successes, it's that constant growth and of Invicta and continuing to be able to provide more opportunities to more people.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Gary. As always, whenever I speak to you, I've got a million questions, but I just want to touch on a specific subject. And I know this could easily take the length of one of these sessions, but you mentioned 50% of your team are allies in some capacity. Sorry to throw this random question at you, but why are allies important, or how are they important?
Thanks. I think so. Obviously, just briefly, just something to really say is that we're all allies, or we all can all be allies to each of us. We're all different, and an ally is, as I quote my partner Sam, and he's probably listening somewhere. An ally is someone who supports someone else's differences that are different to their own, and that's the key message. So we can all be an ally to each other. But I think it's really important because people are coming along, and we're using a game, football, kicking a ball around the pitch for 90 minutes. We're using that as a tool to educate and change hearts and minds and opinions. And members that are not from the community that are part of our club will understand language. They may never have used their pronouns before, or felt the need or the importance of using pronouns, and so they'll go away, and that will impact them as individuals, their family, their friends, maybe their work life, and they're the ones that are sort of fighting the cause for us, as an ally and sharing the message. And so I think it's really, really powerful, and I don't think you can underestimate just how important allies are.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Gary. Daniel, if we can just go to you. How long have you been playing with Invicta?
I started 6 years ago. So, and to be honest, I haven't looked back. It's probably the best thing I've ever done.
That's brilliant. I mean, it's the best thing you've ever done. So how has being involved with Invicta impacted you as a player and a fan?
To be honest, it's just different from any other club that I've joined. I say it every time I speak to people, Invicta's not just a football club, it's a family. I turn up to training and there's people at the club that I would call friends as well as family. You don't just turn up and play football for 90 minutes, you socialise after games. We all go to the pub after. We invite teams back with us. We do socialising as a club, so we'll go out and do events like go bowling. Yeah, it's just something that I've never experienced at a club before. I've been at many clubs even growing up, and I've never felt wanted. Whereas I know that in Invicta, I'm wanted and I feel wanted, and there's people that I can openly talk to about things that happen in my life. Whereas at other clubs, you haven't had that connection or that bond.
Was this just out of interest? Was this other mainstream football clubs or inclusive clubs?
Yeah, no, mainstream. I've only ever really played for 2 LGBTQ plus clubs. But other than that, it's been mainstream, mainly in southeast London and East London.
So that really does highlight the necessity to have people around you who can share life experiences. Yeah, thank you for that, Daniel. Sorry, do you have anything to add then?
No, it's gone.
Lovely, thank you for that. Courtney, just come to you. So why did you join Charlton and Victor, and how did you get involved in the first place?
Hi everybody. I joined. It actually came from. I got a little bit lost last year, so I transitioned 5 years ago. I'm mid-30s, and I got a little bit lost at the start of last year. And with some outside help, I began to head north again. And through that, it was a case of okay, I need to find something to give me some confidence, some belief in myself be around LGBTQ plus people. And with that, it was a case of I sat there and thought, okay, let's go back to the start again. What did you like when you were a child? And football and sports always been a huge part of my life. I'm a Manchester United fan. I've played sport all through my life. And it was a case of, okay, let's look at football teams. Is there an LGBTQ team around? And I just went on Meetup and found Charlton Invicta right at the start of this summer. The first training session, I contacted them on Instagram. Well, I think it was Dan I actually spoke to. I didn't know at the time until I went to the first training session, and just gave a little bit of my story. So it was trans woman, can I come down and play or try out? And they said yeah, and I went down in the summer, and from there it's grown. And I've travelled across the country with them for the start of this season, and then I signed up, and yeah, and I play for the team now, and it's a real positive experience and helping me. I use the word travelling north a lot, and in terms of like recovery and getting better, and it's definitely a major asset to help to keep you going forward.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure Shek would have some comments about the usage of apps such as Meetup, but I've heard this about this app before and utilised it as well when I've moved around. That must have taken quite a lot of courage to meet a group of people you never met before. Have you got any advice or what you were thinking at the time when you first met with Invicta?
Yeah, it took me to get the courage to actually download the app. It took me about 6 months, to be honest with you, from the time, and as I say, I had a lot of help. And all I would say is take your time and make sure it's something you love, because I tried doing different activities, and you go along to them and it's not real. You will go for one day and you have to give a lot of yourself, I find, when you go to different meetups and it's not true. But if you love something, you've got a bit of a background, and with football I had a bit of a background, I understood the sport, so when you go, that naturally gives you a bit of a buzz. But there are nerves, you know. You think to yourself, well, can I still run? Well, luckily I was never fast, so that was never really a problem. But all I would say, yeah, at the time is trust yourself, and trust is a really big word to use there, because I think it's a hard word. But take your time, breathe, and go along, and you'll find once you get over the first hurdle, it gets easier and easier. And go somewhere local to start with as well, and if you need to go on your own, maybe just go to a museum or somewhere like that, just to get out and into the world, and it will just grow naturally, I find anyway. And I think you'll find a lot of these groups actually people have had the same life experiences sometimes, and a lot of the time, and they'll help along the way and they'll understand. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that again. Just a final question in the intros for the Charlton Invicta people, and obviously the Pride Network as well, if you have experience on this. So I, a couple of years ago, went to join an inclusive rugby team. I used to play rugby as a teen. I was very good. I ran around for about 5 minutes and was suffering with asthma, which I don't have. So have you got any advice for someone who might be looking to get involved with one of these networks, one of these inclusive teams that might not feel they're quite up to snuff with their level of fitness?
I'll happily say, to be honest, fitness doesn't matter. With people at Charlton Invicta, everyone's got different abilities and different levels. We've got some people that well, could go on and be professional footballers, but then we've got people that have got less abilities to other people. But it's more about coming down and just enjoying themselves, playing the sport you love. And as Courtney said, it's more about just interacting with people. Look, we had training last night, and I think sometimes we get 10 people, sometimes we get 30 odd people, but it's just about everybody interacting, having a laugh, socializing with each other, and just enjoying the sport they love.
Brilliant, thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, it's called the glorious game for a reason, and I think it's because we can celebrate anyone of any ability or any background. And I think that's what we were talking about, and Gary hit the nail on the head in terms of allies. We're all allies for different reasons, whether that's with people with disabilities, whether that's our communities, LGBT people, whether that's women in sport. So I think, you know, if people are worried about their physical health or something like that, don't let that be a deterrent of getting involved. Drop a message to someone, reach out, and I'm sure there'll be a place even just to sit and watch and enjoy the sport and then go and socialize. I think that's inclusive.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on a few things just briefly there. Interesting what Courtney said about Meetup, because we only set that up in the summer, so that was a brand new thing for us, and obviously Courtney's joined for it, so it shows that there's people out there that obviously want to get involved, and using those platforms might be the only way that they might find us and that we might find them. So you know, really important. And I appreciate how daunting it must be for people. It's hard enough sometimes joining a new job. I hate being a new person at work. So joining a football team as well, or a sports club, must be so daunting. And I remember from 10 years ago, I mean, I found Bexley Invicta in 2013, but I didn't actually go to a training session for about 11 months, because even though I played football growing up and I was quite active and fit, I just didn't know how I was going to feel in that environment. So I think for us, we always try and make, you know, the new people coming to training is important for us, that, you know, there's introductions, we try and make it fun, we try and make it interactive, you know, we mix up the group, so not all, you know, you might train with one player one week, it might be in a different group the week after. So it's important for us because, you know, we're trying to use our own journeys and what we might have gone through to make people coming through the door feel more included. So it's using our own life experience.
Okay, just building on that, thank you for your comments there. Can you tell us about tell us about Football Against Homophobia, if you can, just expand a little bit on that, anything I might not have said, and how Invicta are celebrating and supporting the campaign? Yeah,
so obviously this year marks 15 years, you know, since the Football Free Homophobia campaign launched. The action, the week of action at the beginning, and then it's evolved into a month of action. And I've noticed, just, you know, we've been supporting for as long as I've been at the club, so that's, you know, it's 10 years at least, and they may have done in the years previous to that. You know, we've always sort of dedicated our own games to the campaign and try and use our own platform, our social media platforms, to share players' stories, to just try and make an impact. I think someone touched on it earlier. If you can impact one person, if you can change one person's life, then you're doing something right. So, you know, we've always dedicated games. This year, we had our two teams playing back to back in the LUL Cup, the London Unity League Cup. So it was really important for us to, as a day where we've got everybody on site together, we thought that was a good opportunity to dedicate those games to this year's campaign. So We had some player quotes from different members that went out on social media in the build up to the games. We had the 2 cup games, and I thought having our 2 Invicta teams and 2 opposition teams on the pitch at the same time, let's get a group photo, a giant group photo that really sent out a really powerful message that, you know, we might be rivals on the pitch for 90 minutes, but as soon as the game's done, and for the other, you know, 365 days a year, less the 90 minutes of a match, we're all trying to fight the same cause. We're all trying to ensure our members are safe, that we provide the opportunities, you know, and all of those things about being able to be your authentic self. That exists at every club. It's just for 90 minutes, one team wants to beat the other, you know. So I thought it was a really unique message to get that out with that large group photo, which we did. We've had Kent FA come down to our training session to run a session for us. I jumped on one of their CPD events a few weeks ago just to talk about Invicta and terminology and language that, you know, coaches should be using for members that may or may not identify as LGBTQ+. So that's really good for Kent FA to sort of link up with us and try and get involved and show their support for the campaign. And the Charlton Athletic match days, you know, Charlton and the Charlton women's team always have a dedicated game. That was at the beginning of the month where, you know, Invicta players were present at the game. We had a program article with one of our players, Luca, who's a massive Charlton fan and actually an ally, talking about his journey, why he joined, you know, the difference it's made to him and how he feels he can support members of the community. We had player quotes again going out around that time, and we had players giving some pre and post match speeches at a reception at the club. And Simon, who captains our Division 1 team, shared a little bit about his story, and he only joined, I think, the end of January 2023, and the first time he'd come to a football game and kind of been comfortable to be himself and be out was at Charlton Athletics Football versus Homophobia game in 2023, and he only told us that a few weeks ago. But again, it's that we made that one impact to that one individual that felt he could be as comfortable as his authentic self. So it shows you the importance of the campaign. It shows you the importance of grassroots clubs, but also professional clubs getting involved.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Thank you. Gary, just to probe that a little bit further, you've mentioned some of the benefits and some of the successes as a result of focusing on the campaigns around football against homophobia, rainbow laces, those kind of activities. Do you feel your work has made a significance, or the work that's been done with the club has made a significant difference in the sport in terms of homophobia or inclusion of LGBTQI people?
I think it's made a massive difference and impact to us as a club and our members, because it's given us that platform to share those stories to a wider audience, which I think is really, really powerful. But also being present in match day programs, website articles, on the pitch at half time, and all of those things that, you know, look quite fun, it's given us that increased visibility. So members have seen us at the Valley and reached out and got in contact. I mean, I can think back, it's going back 5 years ago now, but one of our first trans players, Naomi, she only lived around the corner from the Valley. She saw us at the Valley at a reception or on the pitch, and then contacted us because she didn't know that LGBTQ+ inclusive clubs existed, let alone there was one on her doorstep that was affiliated to a professional club. So again, that impact, that visibility is so huge, and I think that's one of the massive, you know, benefits of being affiliated to a professional club.
That's amazing. Again, it's something you mentioned earlier, Gary. Charlton Invicta was one of the first affiliated clubs, or the first, sorry, in Europe. Do you happen to know, just off the top of your head, if anyone does, how many affiliated clubs there are now?
I can't remember off the top of my head how many exactly, but the other clubs have got involved with affiliating LGBT clubs. I know Bristol City affiliated Bristol Panthers, and Millwall Football Club affiliated London Romans that are now Millwall Romans. I can't remember if there's any others, but there's a lot of support. It maybe not formal affiliation, but there's a lot of support from professional clubs to their LGBTQ+ football teams around the country.
I mean, what a legacy! Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Gary. Courtney, just wanted to ask you if you don't mind. What's your thoughts on inclusive teams? How important do you think they are to inclusive teams like Charlton Invicta, that they exist?
I think they're really important. I think they offer hope, actually, and they help you grow your confidence, which then can, and alongside hope, it gives you freedom. What I find is if you are struggling with your confidence, and if you say you've just come out, or you haven't actually came out yet, but you're a little bit, you don't know what to do, and you go along to these clubs that exist. You couldn't do that at a non-LGBTQ club, because how do you express yourself? How you just end up hiding again, and with the hiding comes self-destruction. And so when you go to these clubs, they offer you the hope you can see other people, the confidence and the fun they're having in their lives, and you listen to them and you think, okay, yeah, I can do that at these, and you see it from watching other people. So for me, the clubs offer that. They offer, to me, if I use me as an example, they offered me hope. I'd never really been around a lot of LGBTQ people before in my whole life until I joined Charlton Invicta. Now you see a number of obviously a number of people, and you see, wow, yeah, they've got like partners, and look at the fun, and you think, yeah, I can do this, and you have great pride, and you begin to fall in love, and you see massive amounts of pride in the community, everything that everybody's trying to do to make life better. And I think that stems from these clubs, and it gives you just huge confidence. And for me, confidence gives you a chance at having a real good crack at life as a thing, and the clubs, I think, play a major role in that.
I think, sorry, Michael, I was just going to say, you probably see me sat here with a grin like a Cheshire cat, because I think your story is really inspiring, Courtney. It's so refreshing and just really great to hear. Super. But what I was thinking was, I know your experience is quite short in terms of your time with Invicta, but have you had a thought about how you might channel how you feel into helping others?
Yeah, it is something that has come up. I actually spoke to my friend in Australia a couple of months ago and was just joking, because obviously we have trans meetup groups, but after COVID, they've slowed down. And what I found from just being on different WhatsApp groups is the younger generation don't feel safe going to the meetup groups, and the older generation after COVID, their lifestyles have changed. So the groups have actually disappeared, and you had a couple in London that you would go to. So that, I was speaking to my friend, just saying, maybe that is, and at some point, at the moment, I'm not ready, but at some point, it's definitely something I would like to look into potentially. A couple of weeks ago, I actually went to one of these meetups because I had to see other trans people for the first time. I hadn't seen a lot of trans people for a while, and it was like, oh wow, just to see somebody who looks like me, and just talk, and it's amazing how it helps you. So that would be the way, if I would look to take it forward. It would be from like a group, whether it's in a bookshop or a gallery, somewhere, just a community.
I think it's something you need to think about, because I can just feel the energy coming off you, and it's really good. Sorry, Michael, back to you.
Thank you.
No, please, everyone jump in if you have questions for people to profile, as I've said. That sounds really exciting. Again, this could be a subject that could easily take up an entire event. The question of disappearing inclusive spaces. So whether that's bars, clubs, groups, as was mentioned, and I think lots of potential reasons for that. Yeah, love to probe that further in the time. Thank you for that. Earlier on, Courtney, you mentioned that when you were trying to discover a new place, new group to get involved with, you wanted to cast your mind back to what interested you when you were younger, which was football. What was it like growing up, enjoying this sport when there was no visible representation? Certainly no trans representation, but really not any LGB either in the sport.
For me, that's it's a difficult question for me to answer, because I hid for so long and I pretended to be straight male for early part of my years, and then I would say I was a gay man, but it was never true. So for me, not seeing the representation wasn't really something I noticed. Like I travelled to Manchester United. I was a Manchester United season ticket holder with my dad, but I was a teenager. I was trying to kid myself that I was this bloke, and I wasn't. So not seeing it at the time I didn't notice it. I probably notice it more now that I'm so accepting and of who I am and have learned to love myself. But maybe Dan or Gary or Rob or Bradley may answer the question slightly better, because, like I said, unfortunately, I kind of tried to kid myself until my early 30s that who I was. So it's a difficult one for me.
So it's quite powerful how our brains can deceive ourselves, can't it? I mean, I went through my entire school education was through Section 28, and I was raised in army barracks in Germany. So gay was not discussed. I didn't know I was gay. I was just slightly different, but there was certainly a lot of mental manipulation to that I was a straight guy. So I can, to a degree, understand where you're coming from there. Can we pass that question then over to Daniel or Gary with regards to representation in the sport? Let's go with Daniel. What was that, sorry?
Do you want me to answer? Yeah. So I was just thinking back to, you know, I obviously touch on what you just said, Michael, about Section 28 and school, and you know, school years were probably the worst years of my life. But I remember, you know, when you talk about no role models in the game, I was 15 when Justin sadly took his life, and I remember it very, very well because my cousin got married in Lanzarote. It was May 1998, and we was out there for the wedding. I was 15, wasn't out, you know, really didn't really know sort of who I was really at the time, and it was just all plastered all over the newspapers, and you know, it kind of made you feel, you know, this is a professional footballer. If he can't be himself, you know, what sort of hope have I got? So there definitely was a real lack of role models, and I think that's why I'm really keen for the Invicta players. You know, I say it all the time. We are out there living and breathing football and being activists on and off the pitch, and hopefully trying to change the lives of others, future generations. So we are those role models that probably the younger us needed. You know, that's the way I sort of look at it.
It's a huge responsibility, isn't it? But it's quite true. Yeah. Sorry, Brad.
I think no, it's okay. I just want to jump in. I think I mean, from my experience as well, growing up, it's almost twofold in terms of role models. So, you know, did I actively see someone LGBT playing football? No, not when I went and saw it, whether that was on TV, you know, watching footy on TV, or whether that was in person. You know, I grew up in Doncaster. I grew up, you know, with a family supporting all teams, left, right, and centre. My father chased Manchester United around Europe when I was a kid. So for me, it only made sense to, at some point, have an interest in sports, because it is a family culture. It is a you know, friends and family thing, and I couldn't get my mind into it. I couldn't actively perceive myself playing football, but also I couldn't see myself in the people supporting football. So when I attended matches in stadiums, or you know, Bellevue as it was in Doncaster, it was surrounded by people that were as we expect for football supporters, loud, middle-aged, drunk white men, which, you know, is all well and good. However, it didn't appeal to me. I didn't see myself in them either. So I lost love with the sport. It didn't interest me for a long time. So it's kind of unfortunate, and I know I think that is slightly changing now, and with Invicta and these LGBT inclusive clubs and all inclusive sports, it's definitely changing the ethos of the game and who can go to these things. Who is it available for? All of us.
You touched on a really good. That was great. Thank you. You touched on another really good point with regards to the not just the players but the people within the stands. So. Is it still a situation, again, throwing this out to everyone, is this still a situation where you're coming across or hearing probably something that's put under the guise of banter, but probably touching more towards discrimination or outright hate crimes? You still experience that in stadiums?
I've got a season ticket at Tottenham. I've been going 23 years. I've been born into Tottenham through my dad. My sister comes with us. There was an incident a couple of years ago when we were playing Chelsea away in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. There's a chant been going around that Tottenham fans used to sing to Chelsea fans, and it was called Chelsea Rent Boys. And well, I met my partner 8 years ago, and he's only recently been coming to Tottenham games with me. I'm not ashamed of who I am. I wasn't ashamed of showing him off, and the people around me that I've had the season ticket with for 23 years accept him and accept me. And it was this one game I took him and his mate to the semi-final, and this one guy drunk behind me started singing it. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to stand up for myself, and I'm going to stand up for who I am and what I represent, and call him out on it. He did not like it one bit. He's then started to build up this confidence, and I said to him, do you know what that means? He turned around and said, no. I said, so why don't you take yourself, educate yourself, and then realize what it means, and you won't be saying it again? And from about 70 minutes onwards, he was as silent as anything.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm not sure I'd have the courage to step up to a drunk football fan and challenge that. That's wow, and it ended in a positive way. So brilliant. Has anyone else had experience with this kind of environment in football stadiums?
I mean, I go to the odd game. My local club is Southampton. Obviously not doing so well as we'd like them to do. Hey ho. I think, you know, my partner and I, considering we're the part of the country that we live in, our backgrounds in terms of where we come from, things like that, we're quite okay with public displays of affection. So, you know, we'll hold hands in public, and I won't think about it normally. It's, you know, I don't really care what other people think 9 times out of 10, but I have to say it's not something I would even consider sat in the stand at a football match. And I think he even tried to give me a kiss or touch me or something, and I kind of pulled away because I just didn't feel comfortable in that environment with public displays of affection, rightly or wrongly. Yeah, not great, but
again, something I can empathise with. I think that internalised homophobia that was just instilled into me as a child is still deeply ingrained, even though I've worked in advocacy in this area for a long time, and I have no mentally active issues around my sexuality. It's still really difficult sometimes when you're not expecting a hand touch when you're walking down the street to not flinch. It's a bit of a survival instinct, I imagine, as well. So Courtney, can I ask you, what do you think the impact of this kind of, I'm going to stop using the word banter because that's not really correct, but these kind of chants and negative discriminatory comments could be on both fans and players?
It leaves a mark. I don't think people actually realise when they say things that, I think they just say it and don't actually appreciate the actual impact it has. And I think that can be in whether you're walking down the street or certainly in the football ground. So I think the more people just keep chanting it, you see with some players, don't you? Even if it's not just they're bantering, like you can use the Steven Gerrard one. I hate Gerrard slipped on hand the transfer request, and you can see how it affects him. And he's Steven Gerrard, and so you're thinking, well, we're just sitting in the football ground doing our own business when we're walking down the street, and you're hearing this negativity, and negativity, it embeds in you, and it gets deeper and deeper, and it starts, and you start to then. Problem is, then I find people start to, I believe it, the negativity, and then you start talking, and the voices, and everything gets a bit worse. And I don't think people realise it. Because if they haven't ever had that in their life, say they're the ones giving it out, or they're just with their friends and they're just constantly laughing and joking all the time, but they've never ever had any negativity thrown at them, they're never going to know, are they? And that's where the education will come in through the football clubs to show them that I know this does impact. You may not think it does, and you may think you're joking. Well, it actually has a major impact on somebody. You don't know what it means because you've never lived that life. but think about it from, if you are constantly hearing negative about you, who you are and your lifestyle, it's going to have an impact. So, but I think it's a tough one, isn't it? I think it's education, and yeah.
I think we're always trying to encourage education in people. And I understand that we can't throw that down everyone's throat, especially not, fans of a football team. But what I would say, not to put people off, because we do have these negative situations, is there are LGBT supporter groups that you can go with other people who are LGBT to match games. So you're surrounded by your people. It might not eliminate that, the chants and things like that sometimes, but you do have a support system around you. You should be able to enjoy what you want to enjoy, and football is that place. And it's not just LGBT people, it's for neurodiverse people. I know that started to come to the forefront nowadays, which is fantastic to see.
Absolutely, and beyond general ignorance or possibly learned negative behaviour, I mean, as was mentioned by Daniel, that chap didn't know the meaning of the term, so just repeated hate, but without necessarily always knowing where it stems from. Daniel, just to come back to you, what do you think the current situation is in football with regards to players coming out now? Is it different to how it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Yeah, I would say it is. I still think we've got a long way to go for a mainstream professional, maybe Premier League player to come out. But you can see the likes of Jack Daniels. He was 19 years old when he come out playing for Blackpool. You've got a couple of Scottish players coming out. You've got ex-professional players coming out. Obviously, their careers have finished, but there's still role models outside the game. But I still think we have a long way to go for a professional Premier League player, or even a Serie A or La Liga player to come out. But I think when it does, I think that will be a game changer.
Do you think it's important for people to come out in football?
I personally do, yeah, because it gives someone a platform like myself or Courtney or Gary, Bradley, and everyone else that wants to play football, enjoy the sport they love, to know that there's someone doing the sport they love to come out and continue their journey. So why can't anybody else continue their journey?
Fully agreed, of course. Hopefully we're going to get to a point where it's not a conversation that needs to be had. But yeah, we're not quite there yet. Anyone else have any other comments on how that might impact you, or what you'd think of the sport if you saw that?
I think if I saw that as a kid, then I'd be much more involved in football and sports in general. So I think it's important, and I think it ties back to that conversation that we had earlier with Courtney about inclusive teams and whether they're necessary. I still think even when we get to a point of acceptance in football where there are Premier League and League One footballers, coming out and they're comfortable with it and we're all comfortable with it, the inclusive teams are still very important, because you might see one person that might be playing professional football that's LGBT and they feel comfortable kicking a ball with a group of people that aren't a part of their community, but that doesn't mean you are. And we have to have those spaces still safe for people. But I do think seeing people being open and honest about their sexuality, their gender, or any disabilities they may have, visible or invisible, I think is important.
I do think we should get to the point where people don't have to come out. You don't get straight people saying, "Hi, I'm straight." So we should be at a point where people live their lives as who they want to be, and not say, "Hi, I'm gay." Do you know what I mean? Or this is my. But everyone's going to have a coming out story, and everyone's story is going to be different. But I think we should get to a point in the world where you shouldn't have to come out and say, "I'm gay," or "I'm bi," "I'm trans." You should just be able to live your life. And I think when we start getting to that point, that's when things will really change.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
was having a conversation. Oh, sorry, Gary. I was going to say I was having a conversation with a colleague just today. He played professionally for a while, and I actually said to him, why isn't football progressive? And then I actually backtracked and said, well, no, football is being progressive. How you interpret the word progressive, is another matter. But let's consider, I think about now, nobody talked about women playing football when I was younger. Now it's everywhere. It's amazing and really good to see. Whether that's been helped by the media, whatever it is, women are out there. They're playing football. They're on the front pages of the newspapers. They're in the news headlines, and it's there's a massive following. So that's really great, really good. And then another conversation with another colleague was about racism. Racism in football has improved dramatically. There's god awful chants. Hopefully almost a thing of the past. Ethnic, multicultural players all over, represented all over in the football leagues and on teams, and that's just great. So clearly, and I totally agree with Daniel. It's like I'm just playing football. My backstory or my is irrelevant. I'm just here to kick a ball and just accept me for who I am. And the same guy was saying, interestingly, that around a player in a professional club coming out, he was of the view, said in the changing room, nobody would bat an eyelid. They would applaud them. Hugs all round. Good on you, mate. You be who you are. The problem is what goes on the other side of that barrier is obviously where the concern lies. And he was saying, I don't think people really realise that to be a professional foot player, it's very stressful. There's a massive amount of commitment. There's a short window in your life where you're able to play. There's so much going on and off the pitch. There's too much to deal with. To then say, I'm going to throw into this massive part of my life that is or isn't going to be very well received. Do I need that additional stress, or do I just say to myself, actually, do you know what? I'm not going to do this. I'm going to keep this to myself, and I'll have to deal with it after I'm a professional footballer when my career's over. Like you were kind of saying, Dan, some players come out when they're retired. Totally not the right way for it to go, but that's something they obviously seriously consider, and obviously decision they take, because it's just too much to contend with in the public eye at the top of their career with everything else that they've got going on in their lives.
You make some really good points. We're talking about representation for the LGBTQIA plus community. We also need to have that representation from straight allies, showing this progressive, inclusive way of being, welcome into a sport. So I'm just aware of the time. We've been nattering, and we've not got to the Q&A yet. So thank you very much for that your contribution so far. We've got a couple of questions in from the audience. Do Invicta work with any mainstream grassroots clubs to help improve their inclusivity? Would these clubs be keen to engage at all?
That's a really good question. I think so. We joined the North Kent Sunday Football League a couple of years ago, and sort of branched out. First time we'd ever done that. So we were playing sort of regular Sunday league football, where we were the only LGBTQ plus team in the league. So all the teams we were playing against were, again, being a little bit presumptuous, but were probably majoritarily made up of players that identified as heterosexual. So we put ourselves in an environment which we weren't used to, but we were still our same Invicta, i.e., we have photos before the game or after the game. We take along our Football v Homophobia flag, and for the relevant matches, we want photos with the opposition. And a lot of those, players had probably never experienced that before, or had probably never played against a team that had an out LGBTQ plus footballer. So we were still bringing our same sort of Invicta brand that we, take all around the UK and Europe to a Sunday league. And the teams were engaging. Some of the teams in particular, got involved with the campaigns. I remember one team we played, we'd asked them if they would wear a rainbow armband. Both the captains had a photo with a rainbow armband. It might have been the first time they've ever done that. So we were using our club as a tool to just start that conversation. And we also had one game in particular where one of our players had a homophobic slur aimed towards him during the game. And we reported it to the referee. The referee said that they're probably annoyed that you're beating them. So my advice is to just finish the game and beat them and send a message. And we continued, we did win the game, but we had to make the referee aware that if that continued, we would quite happily walk off the pitch, even though we were in a winning position. Because if we don't challenge it as LGBTQ plus people, then those players from that team will never learn. And we are here as a club to educate. So we do try and get involved when we can, but obviously most of it comes in and around a game of football.
Presumably that would have counted as a forfeit as well if you had walked off.
Yeah, no, it would have. But obviously, if the abuse was severe enough and continued, then we've sort of already. It's something we actually discussed when we'd entered the league, sort of preempting what might happen and what would we do in that situation. Because obviously playing against other LGBTQ plus teams, you'd like to think you're never in that situation. But putting ourselves in an environment where we had to expect the unexpected, we kind of had to know, where would the line be and what would we do? And some things are bigger than 3 points at the end of the day, to us as a club and individuals.
Thank you for that. We do have some excellent other questions, but again, just keeping in mind of the time, there's one question I wanted to touch on anyway. Someone's asked, what useful advice you'd have to give, you give to a football club who are looking to start an affiliated club. So perhaps there's something we can explore after this meeting and get a written response. So for now, though, we are drawing to an end of our time today. So I just wanted to express a gigantic thank you to our panelists. Huge appreciation to those in the background that have supported today's event. And of course, a massive thank you to everyone who's attended today or watching this post facto. I mentioned at the start that we'll be sharing a feedback form in due course, and we'll obviously include the rest of the questions and answers that we've not managed to get to today. 2024, there's many more exciting events, content campaigns that are coming both through the Pride Network and Charlton Invicta. So if you're able to support what we're doing in RSK, or if you're able to support Charlton Invicta by going attending matches, I'm sure that support would be very much appreciated. For now, unless anyone else has any last minute comments from the panel. No, fab. Okay, well, have an amazing day, everyone. Amazing week, and we'll see you soon.